Good evening. And today's pocket eights. So in this hand we had under the gun limps, or under the gun open raises, 3 big blinds, and then villain 8 calls. Under the gun I've got 1,000 hands. He's pretty tight, 15-10. Early position raise first in's only at 8%, so he's going to have a pretty solid range. Probably something like that, maybe Jack 10. Maybe he has those out and then he adds, maybe those. We'll leave that just like that. Villain 8, on the other hand, I don't think has that great a hand. His early position called 2 bets, 50%. We don't have a huge number of hands, but just for the fact that he called from under the gun suggests that he probably has a speculative hand. I think we'll include those. We'll keep our pocket pairs. Oops. Maybe those. Maybe the suited aces. Maybe those. Nothing too crazy. And now it's on us versus early position raise. I have calling range. It's pretty tight. Pretty tight myself. So pocket pairs, some big cards. Actually, I could probably fold a lot. What about raising? Definitely, I think raising is a possibility. He folds to 3-bet 50%. I would bet that if I raised here with quite a few of these hands, I'm going to probably just pick it up. Yeah, villain 8 might call, but at least we'll be in a bread and butter situation and figure to pick up the pot. So I just called, and we'll leave that. And then we have both blinds call, and that's kind of interesting. Small blind calls 2 bets 14% of the time. He's probably playing something with some value, so we can say, maybe the suited aces, maybe our pocket pairs hoping to flop trips, maybe like the suited hands, maybe king queen, maybe those offsuits, probably pocket queens. Yeah, that's probably about right. And then the big blind's probably just calling because he's in there. I think he's going to be a pretty wide range. And by wide, I mean probably something like this. We'll get rid of some of these offsuits, but we'll make sure that he has the connectors. In his mind, he's getting great price to see a flop, so it might be something like that. All right, so I'm super tight here. Well, not tight, super narrow. Only 58 combos, and not overly strong either. So the flop comes out king of spades, 6 of diamonds, 5 of clubs. And you can see that the pre-flop raiser definitely has advantage here. So these players check. I think he has donked flop 3% of the time. I'm going to assume that they were going to check 100% of their range. But the fact that this guy checked, villain 7 checked, is kind of interesting. He c-bets out of the position 54% of the time. So I'm going to say on this board, I do think ace king's going to bet. So I'm going to say all the top pair bet, the over pair bet. The sets, kings and sixes, I think he might just check those. But I think aces will bet. I think ace king king, queen, king, jack will bet. I think pocket pair below the top card's going to check. So, and then these no made hands. What about the draws? Well, the only draws he has is the 2-card backdoor flush draw. So I've got him checking, 75.5%, and he's checking those pocket pairs because he's afraid the king. That's what I'm gonna say. Villain 8 now checks, and he had the opportunity to bet, so I'm going to say his sets. I would assume sets. He would bet those sets. 2-pair would probably bet. I think top pair would bet. I think those pocket pair below the top cards would probably check along with all of those. I assume the draws would be betting. As a looser and semi-aggressive player, I'm going to assume that that's what we're dealing with. And that now it comes to me. What should I do? At this point, I think the question is, what can we get? What can we get our money in? So I don't think we really have a need to bet top pair. I think we can check that. Because the only card that could really pose us some problems is that ace. I would probably check the king and hope that somebody bets on the turn that we call, and then when he checks the river, we could probably bet for a little bit of thin value and get paid. So I kind of feel like we're going to be checking about 100% of our range at this point. And I bet, which to me thinks then that I'm betting those just purely as a bluff. Because, with my range, I mean, I do have 2-card backdoor flush draws, but I don't know if I can really justify those. So, I mean, if I do those, let's get that. And bet top pair, you can see I'm bluff heavy. Maybe I bet those for value, but value heavy. I just don't like this bet at all. I don't like this bet at all because I don't have anything to balance it. I'm just such a tight range here that I think it makes more sense just to check. Villain 5 is the only one that calls. So let's get rid of him. So let's get rid of him. We bet about half pot. And now he calls. I think he could be calling with any pair, any of these draws. I'm not sure if bottom pair calls. We'll keep him in. 2s, 3s, 4s, I think are probably going to fold. So we're going with that. I just have to assume that's what I'm betting, just as a bluff. Try to pick up my equity now. But I think we could have done the same thing on the turn and still generated a lot of folds. So that's what we're going to go with, even though I don't really like it. So 52.6%. I've got 30 combos versus this player. Which he has 79 combos. 7 hearts. That does kind of help a little bit. I mean, I do have those middle pocket pairs. So the 7 could improve. The 8 gives me open and straight draw. The 9 gives me a gut shot. Definitely, I think that helps. But what kind of hands could he be calling with? He could have called with kings, and he's still gonna call. He's gonna call with 6s. If he has 8-6, he's gonna call. If he has 9-6, he's gonna call. If he has 6-4, he's gonna call. I don't think he has a lot of those. I don't think he has the gut shots, but that 6 here, that 7 now potentially makes two pair for him. So what does he do? He checks, and I think he's going to check 100%. I think he would go for check raises on straight sets and two pairs. Top pair, I think he could check all and then lead the river. Pocket pair below the top card, those I think just check calls. So it was on us, and I checked, and this is where we bet. He calls. I think the only viable hand that we could bet is the set, and hope that he has two pair. And then I think with the set, we could bet with the open-ended straight draw, kind of as a balance. Maybe just balance as a gut shot. Because then if an 8 gets there, it's going to be less likely that he thinks we actually connect, and he could lead into us and we could call. I checked, which makes me think then, based on my range, that I bet that, and I just think I kind of give away my hand, if you ask me. So either have a pair below that king, or I've got some sort of straight draw. So basically jacks to 8s again. This is 88.9%. I've got 24 combos. He checks, so that's going to be 100% of his range. Now I think what he does, if he bets, he's got a hand and he's just hoping to get called here. If he checks, then he probably doesn't have anything. He misdraws. So ace of hearts comes. With that ace of hearts, we are 23.2% equity. He has 76.8% equity. He checks, and at this point, I'm going to exclude straight sets two pair. I don't even think middle pair. I think he would have. Now he can have middle pair, pocket pair, weak pair, nothing. So I think he has that. So against that range, that checking range, you can see that we're only 33%. Really, the only hands we beat are the weak pair. So I kind of feel like, based on my range right now, we just check behind, take the showdown. We had 8s. He shows 7-4. 7-4 wasn't even in his range, which makes you think, why did he call? Based on his pre-flop, he only calls 14%. It's possible that he was calling just to flop a monster, in which case I think you change a lot of his ranges. So he called with the open-ended straight draw. That's reasonable. I think he would probably have called the turn and then check down on the river, check fold on the river. So how do I think I played? I don't like my turn bet at all. Not my turn, my flop bet at all. I think it really narrowed my range down way too much. I think we check, and if it checks us on the turn, we could bet again. He's gonna call, but then we can easily bet, one more time on the river, possibly. I just don't think I had it. I think this is just kind of a hand where we check and be done with it. Too many kings versus all these opponents. All right, if you like this hand, look tomorrow for another.